Podcast world, what's up? I'm Chad. I'm back at you. I got another awesome episode of an amazing man that's been here before, but he's been working through the pandemic, through the coronavirus. Please remember to keep supporting the partners and sponsors that support our podcasts, our TV shows, our websites, our social media, our live events, our concerts, our community events. We're even going to be doing some parades with some farmers and different companies around the farming sector this fall. So be looking for that, and be looking for our provider trailer to hit your area to feed first responders of wild game meat, 4-H pork, Future Farmers of America, lamb and pork, and our brand new American almond beef. Can't wait to bring it all to you. I want to talk today to this man about, I want to start this off by this, like, Adam Hood. This is who this is. This is Adam Hood. He's like the one and only. He's, when you talk about Adam Hood to songwriters, they're like, that's a bad mofo. That's a bad mother effer. That's a bad some bitch. I've heard it all, but I want to start this off by this, Adam Hood. How are you, first of all, my brother?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
You look good. I like that hat. You like that hat.
Right. I got it from Cifro.
Cifrio.
When we went to his place in Arkansas.
Pretty cool shop, huh? Did you get some duck calls?
I did get some duck calls. Yeah, some great duck calls. I mean, the guy's a master.
Isn't he a master? He's a musician, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, he is the musician of the duck call. I agree. Probably the Les Paul of the duck call, I would say.
Ooh, I'm going to tell him you said that.
Yeah, for real. That's deserving, I think.
So when I say that stuff about what people think of your songwriting skills, I've been listening to one certain individual a lot. And I have a feeling that you dig him, because I hear a lot of you in his songwriting, like, and vice versa. And I know BC's in the same. Brent's already told me how he feels about Chris Knight. What does Chris Knight mean to you? And is he one of the best of all time, hands down?
For sure. Yeah, I think he's one of the best of all time. And, you know, the thing is with Chris, I remember when that first album came out. I mean, I remember when It Ain't Easy Being Me kind of hit Americana radio for whatever it was at the time. And like, honestly, man, I don't even remember where that format was, other than like No Depression magazine and just CDs. And I couldn't tell you where I heard it. I couldn't tell you, but I remember that song being, well, I had a friend that would make me like a compilation of like Texas music. Ironically, you know, Chris is one of those guys that's sort of an honorary Texan. And so I had a friend that would always like make just mixed tapes of Roger Creager, Blue Evanston, and Chris was on there, and It Ain't Easy Being Me was on there. And so that was, you know, my first experiences with Chris were the first record, and I've been a fan ever since. And I mean, he's somebody that really structurally barely changes, as far as like, he writes pretty much in the same keys. The chord changes are all really similar. Like, you know, there's not a whole lot of stylistic changes, but he's made just a pile of songs, and every song is different. And that just goes to show you how kind of lyrically masterful the guy is. You know what I mean? That he can take the same song and rewrite it 150 different times, and every single song be different and great, you know? So yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan. That
album you're referring to is in 1997, the self-titled, the Chris Knight album.
Yeah.
Had It Ain't Easy Being Me. It had another song on there called Frame, The River Zone. When I heard it, I actually got it played for me by one of my duck hunting, turkey hunting buddies in Kentucky, where Chris is from. So he's like, listen to this shit. And I'm like, I remember when Frame came on, and I'm like, did he just say at the end of the song that he actually did kill the guy, but he was framed in doing so? Like, the whole time he's making you feel like he was framed. They took me away and railroaded me on this one-way train. And the whole time he's literally, and now I'm thinking like, he's telling us that he's admitting to the murder, but his wife and her lover framed him into killing this guy, right? Like he was hell bound, is what he says at the end. And I'm just like, how cool of an approach is that? And then at the very end, just, even if I had to gun him down. And I'm just like, God, that is so like awesome. Yeah. But that's how I see a lot of, in Cobb has even said that there's a song by Chris Knight named Rural Route. Have you heard Rural Route?
I have, yeah.
The lyrics in Rural Route are like how we live. Like, the river is up and the road was closed. There ain't no telephone at my mama's house. And he's sitting on a mountain and he builds this fire, and he's drinking and he's talking to God all day, and he takes another shot and it set him right. Then he goes down to the road and fills a beer can full of 22 holes. And Brent Cobb says that line has made him cry watching Chris Knight in person. So
wow.
where I'm going with this, Hood, is like, you guys are writing songs in this same Americana non-radio supported deal, which is BS, which I've said before.
Yeah.
But what a way to freaking live your life, right? To be able to write these 3.5 minute stories and to have somebody out in the West United States talking about Chris Knight and what you do. I can name all the songs. I mean, I don't know how much you know about what I know about your music and what the people that I run with, how much we listen to it. But when you hear the way that you wordsmith Hell of a Fight, when you hear the way that you wordsmith songs like She Don't Love Me No More, it's not regular cookie cutter lyrics. It's a different way. I don't know if it's bluesy. I don't know if it's the soul that's in them. I don't know what sets it apart. And that's what I'm here to ask you is, what is the difference in the way that you and Cobb and Chris Knight, and I compare you guys all the same because it's music that literally will bring you to your knees, and there's not a lot of that on the radio today, in my humble opinion, which I'm sure listeners are getting tired of me sounding like a broken record and saying that, but there is a such thing as real lyrical music out there still that makes you go, holy shit, the way that he just said that makes me just hurt, or it makes me want to high five somebody, whatever. So I have seen so many people react to this music that now that they're getting turned on to you guys the same way, and they want more of it. What is it though? What is the difference? And I hope you understand my question.
I think it's really one of those things to where, I mean, I can say this from a being in the middle of being a songwriter in Nashville. There's and I think we talked about this last time. There's kind of a method, I mean, there's a certain chord structure, and I mean, man, they work this down to science, I mean, they understand what keys, what tempos, what just sort of all the algorithms, if you will, that just sort of make songs appealing to a large amounts of people. And that's a really interesting way to look at it, but it's not very creative. I mean, to me, like, I feel like that sort of puts you inside a box that as a writer and as a creative person, you kind of want to always get out of, and so, and for me, I try not to do that. I try to really sort of work all the parameters of my influences, because as far as like lyrical content and like how I sing songs, I mean, I was influenced as a singer, I was probably influenced by everyone from Otis Redding to George Jones. As a writer, I was influenced by, some of the guys that were eclectic like that, John Hyatt, Delbert McClinton, but guys that sort of had a different perspective. But then I started there, and you just start digging and you keep digging, and, you become a student of people like Chris Knight, and I mean, I was a big student of Chris Knight's, Prine was a big influence of mine. Let's see, just a lot of people, just a lot of writers. And you study their stuff because you really want to. There's got to be something there that you gravitate to. There's something there that you can connect yourself to, and that's like what Brent's talking about. That's the connection where you can say, "All right, I've been there. I've been shooting at that same can that you're talking about. I've driven down that same dirt road that you're talking about." And as soon as you can attach yourself, man, that's it. I mean, the race is on after that.
And do you think that when you start hearing people that, the Chris Knight story goes, Chris was on the show last week.
Nice.
And I mean, I was blown away. Like, I get giddy, right? Thinking about, I got to talk to Chris Knight. Yeah. And he's 60 years old now, and he's still living the same exact life that he lived on when he grew up on Rural Route. He told the story of Rural Route. He told the story about how when he started writing and was in Nashville, I think it was at Bluebird, that his manager, who runs Carnival now.
Yes, Frank Liddell. Yeah,
Frank Liddell told Chris Knight that you need to be the deliverer of these songs. And that's why originally he was just going to be a writer. Mm-hmm. And then Frank's like, you have to sing these because this is you. So then that's when that album came out in 97, which should have had radio success because they are gems, right? Like, you cannot write a better country song than It Ain't Easy Being Me, or Framed is a really well-written song, but it's probably not like, I don't know, they're all genius to me, right? So his story goes like, I wasn't even supposed to be the one singing these songs, right? I kind of look at you the same way of like, I don't know if somebody else can deliver your songs the same way that you do. Now, as a songwriter, you have to keep that open, right? You have to keep that potential there because that's your livelihood. But when you start, I'll let you hold on. When you start writing, Adam, do you write them for yourself originally? But then you're like, well, I could see Al Dean doing this, or I could see Luke Bryan doing this, because I know y'all write with Luke Bryan, and Luke Bryan is a radio smash expert, right? Like he's created some smashes. So, or do you automatically go, all right, I'm going to sit down and write for Luke today?
My motto has always been, if nobody else will record it, I will, but at the same time, like what you're talking about, as a writer, you kind of, you can sing yourself out of a job, and you can write yourself out of a job. And that's the kind of thing. There's a fine line between doing things that are going to get cut and doing things that are ultimately creative. There's always a line that you're teetering. And so, I guess for me, I never start out with anybody's, that's not true. It just depends, there's guys that I know I can, like I'm writing for Dave Cobb, there's things there are artists that I know I can do I know I can do what Anderson East does. I know I can do what Isbell does. I know I can do what Brent does. I know what and so if they're pitching songs to guys like that, I know I can do stuff like that. Like I know that my writing style, if I listen to their stuff, I can probably find a common ground to keep it me and still keep it them. But honestly, they're not, the guys like that, and I know you've had like Justin Moore on there, and we've pitched a bunch of songs to guys like Justin and guys like that, they're not looking for you really, like they're not looking for Adam Hood songs. They may be looking for Adam Hood songs that sort of cater to what their style is, because at the end of the day, Justin's got a great style of doing things, and so you kind of have to be conscious of that. But at the same time, I have a job because I do what I do, if that makes sense, you know what I mean?
It does. And when you start talking about, you said something in there, Adam, that said, that Justin isn't looking for me. He's looking for something that would be a more wider appeal, but would still be something that he would write. Justin even said on the podcast, like, I probably wouldn't sing something if I couldn't see myself writing it.
There you go.
So with that being said, how does David Lee Murphy become such a huge, like that? He's got to go down as one of the best ever as far as creating magic, right? He's got to, right? Still this many years later, he's doing it. Mm-hmm. But he writes about himself a lot. They say that Dust on the Bottle was written in like 20 minutes based on his, like how he lived on that road. So, but that appealed to a lot of people. Like Dust on the Bottle, I don't know. I wouldn't think that maybe 5% of America's high school population has ever pulled up into Creo's yard and asked him for something special to make this date go better. Now, you might go to your dad and say, hey, Dad, can I borrow some money to go get a rose? Something like that. But to hear it put down like what DLM did, does that really... Is it just because the riff and how that hook hit? Like there might be a little dust. Like, is that what made that hit? Is that what you're looking for? Like that story might not appeal to maybe, but 5% of this population that would happen to a high school kid, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's kind of like a scenario with Chris. I think David just sort of found a groove. You know what I mean? And he just kind of found a style. And you can tell that like a song like Dust on the Bottle, it's not overthought. There's a simplicity to it. There's a simplicity to the song, to the way it's sung. It's not a song that's in a real high vocal register or anything like that. So, anybody could kind of sing it. And it's a great tune. And I think Dave's probably one of those examples of somebody that kind of just, he sort of tapped into that place as a writer and just said, I've done it once. I'm just going to keep on doing it. And he has continuously kept on doing it. And that's the beauty in it. Like he writes really commercially successful songs and they're still great songs too, man. And that is not a common occurrence. I feel like that it's either you're writing commercially successful songs or you're writing creatively deep songs. But every once in a while, you'll find Tim McGraw will cut one. He'll cut a Lori McKenna song, or Aldean will cut one of David's songs, or guys like that. I mean, I know Justin's cut a bunch of Natalie Hemby songs, and Natalie's an old friend, and so there are songs that kind of slide their way through that are equally as commercially appealing, but their lyrical content is good too. And so, I mean, that's what, as a writer, at the end of the day, if that's not your plan, you probably ought to find another plan. You know what I mean? You really kind of want to do that.
It's just funny though, how DLM could take John Deere and turn it into a kid's book. He almost turned it into a kid's book. Like
right.
When you're in kindergarten, you hear about a big green tractor, right? And that becomes arguably Jason Aldean's biggest hit to date, probably. I mean, that was one of the biggest hits of the last 15 years, probably. And David Lee Murphy says that he just wrote that in a few seconds or a few minutes out on his tractor. But he turned it into like this children's book, then mixed it with love and like that romance. And you're just sitting there going like, he literally just said big green tractor. And it just seems like so simple to me that he just stuck with that. I've got a big green tractor. I got dust on my bottle. I'm looking for the party crowd. There was nothing big about in party crowd. Even when you hear it, it never once said there was a tailgate down and a bunch of people at a bonfire and all these chicks around and cut off jeans. And it was so simple of like, put up my keys. I'm freaking looking to get smashed tonight.
Yeah.
Simple, right?
Yeah. And doing it without, like you said, sort of leaving it up to the listener's imagination. You know what I mean? You don't have to necessarily put a tailgate in there. Let them put the tailgate in there. You don't have to put a dirt road in there. Let them put the dirt road in there. And that's the beauty in it, man. I've got two kids that love music. And I'll tell you this, kids' songs are hard to write because, it's really hard to get, and it's funny because it's a real liberating thing. Like, it's really hard to do something so simple that it's automatically appealing. It's a challenge, I mean, it's a challenge. Some people are just better at it than others. It's still a work in progress for me.
When you start the process of writing Hell of a Fight, which everybody in the world should hear this song about life, what are the lines when you get past the part of, went through all your money in Nashville, but you're still keeping your dreams alive. Right. You hit a little lick there before the hook of, it's been a while since I fell asleep on my own. And the next one is, it's been kind of, it tells me like, it's been a minute since somebody gave a rat's ass if you're coming home. Is that the chord progression to those two lines? I don't know if that's the correct terminology in music. I know chord progression is more of a musical term on an instrument, but how that goes, it's telling me that you haven't been medicated and you need medication to sleep, whether it's liquor or whether it's pills. And then all of a sudden you're saying, nobody really has cared if I come home in a minute. Is that what that song's saying?
Yeah. So, all right. So kind of that song fell out. I had the first 4 lines of that song written, and I had a writing appointment with Ashley Monroe that day. And so, who's man, Ashley's great. And so I took those 4 lines to her, and then we just ran with it after that. And so I think, it's kind of like you said, it's the progression of somebody kind of coming to terms with where they are in life. You know what I mean? Like, and when I say coming to terms, like really accepting it for what it is and saying, okay, there are parts of this that aren't great. There are parts of this that are, this has been hell, but I'm going to make it better. I think, or I think that's the plan. I mean, I think so.
But it makes total sense. But I still am trying to get to the way that you and Ashley wordsmithed it. Okay, then just sing it for me real quick, would you? Just that part, like if you can you sing the first? No, sing the first part of it if you can. I'm not telling you what to do, but the song.
In a cold, cold winter. Coming home is one hell of a drive, but I've run through my money in Nashville. It's time to get on with my life. I'd run through like my entire first year's thing with my publishing deal. Okay, so I don't remember the rest.
Yeah, you do. Come on. I know the song, Adam.
Cold winter, going home is one hell of a drive. I've run through my money in Nashville. It's time to get on with my life. I've got a head full of questions, and I haven't given up on my dreams. I just can't get out of a hurry. going, running and gunning, and I'm falling apart at the seams. The speed is wearing me out. And I hope my heart don't fall apart on me now. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I fell asleep on my own. That's a codependency thing right there. That's needing somebody to be by you. Yeah. Okay.
Wait. So it's codependency on another human being?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah. So I had it wrong. I thought
you know what? It is kind of a substance thing too, because you kind of talk about spent 3 days in a lonely place, but at least the pain it woke me up, and that's kind of the beginnings of sobriety. Yeah, yeah.
But what's the line after that? What's the line after that? After the sobriety, what's the line about? It's been
I didn't have to call someone, tell me I'll come.
That's the one right there.
I had one too many.
No. That one that you just went over about calling somebody.
The last time I didn't have to call someone to tell them that I'm coming home. That's
codependency, isn't it? Isn't that like you wish somebody cared that you were coming home because you've been going home alone so much?
I think that perspective was sort of staying in toxic relationships, basically. You know what I mean? That was kind of the idea. It's like, kind of having someone that you really don't necessarily. I mean, because like with when my wife and I, she needs me to check in. Well, I need to check in. But when it's a little bit more toxic of a relationship, you usually don't. I'm glad to have the freedom to be away from whoever this person is, whether they want me to call them to check in or not. You know what I mean? So
oh my gosh, I had it way wrong.
So what was your perspective on it?
I thought you were feeling sorry for yourself that you don't have anybody to call and tell them you're coming home because you're just going home alone and nobody gives a flying rat's ass if you walk through the door or not. That's what you're fiending for, is somebody to actually care. But maybe that's what you're saying.
It was nice to have someone that didn't do that in that place in my life. Yeah. It was.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was nice to not have to check. Well, to not check in whether I had to or not. Yeah. Because that was a song before Brittany and I got married. So
do you think that some artists would be intimidated to sing that song because they didn't come up with it? And I'm asking that in a broad spectrum, Adam Hood, of like, in today's world, it seems like a lot of artists want a piece of that writing, a piece of that publishing, a piece of that, pen to pin their pencil to paper. They want their name on it, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when I hear that song and I'm in my swimming pool and I'm singing it and everybody's like, what'd you say? I might lie and say, yeah, I wrote that because it's so good. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, do you think people would be intimidated to ever write, to lay down a song like that because it's so heavy and it would be so difficult to put it together the way that you did? Or is that me? Are artists always looking for the next big hit? And if it's a hit, it's a hit.
I think, yeah, I think there's something to that. I think that I have I have a little bit of ownership. It's kind of like I was saying, like kind of singing yourself out of a job and writing yourself out of a job. There are songs of mine that I can't speak for everybody, but I got buddies that have said, I really want to cut that song, but I won't touch it, just because of the fact that like, that's an Adam Hood song. And, and if I put it on my record, that the world's not the world, but whoever's heard that song is going to say, man, that's an Adam Hood song. And they're going to judge it based on that, so is that good or bad? I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that says, God, that's an arrogant thing to say. But then there's also a part of me that says, yeah, you kind of wrote yourself out of a job with that one. You took so much ownership.
But I think you kind of have, Adam. I think that when I hear you and Brent do music, nobody can do Keep Them on Their Toes like Brent just did it, right?
That's right?
They can't. So is Brent so stubborn that he's like, I don't give a shit if anybody cuts this or not? And are you also, because you guys are writing, and this is how I started this podcast, is that you're not writing Big Green Tractor, even though David Lee Murphy is an absolute wizard and a genius of songs. You're not writing that simple song. Maybe you have, but these songs that really touch home with me, like I'm looking at a couple right now, Downturn. Okay. Yeah. That song, Tennessee Will, you're just like, that song can go so many different directions, and it's really about which route she's going to take to get home, I think.
That's right.
But the way that you wordsmith it, it's almost like that's an Adam Hood cut. That's what Adam does. So I don't know if you're not I don't know if you're not being simple enough to have a commercial songwriting career. As bad as that is, I'm not trying to sound hurtful. I'm trying to say that you're too freaking good. I think to be. I'm not saying that there's not awesome writers in commercial, but I think your songs are intimidating. I really think they are.
Well, and I think the thing is this, I will say, and I can speak for Brent when I say this, I think we've written enough to say that it's really not intentional. I think that Brent and I do this because this is all we know how to do. Like, I write the way I write because that's how I know how to write. Brent writes the way he writes because that's how he knows how to write. I mean, this is something that it's not just something that we came up with. Like, this is, my career right now is a 30-year work in progress. And so, I didn't just kind of come up with a plan when I got a publishing deal. So I've always worked, and the truth is, there's always different ways. And that's kind of why we collaborate. That's why I don't write by myself as much, because of the fact that, like, I want to do things different. I want to write songs that other people will cut. And the easiest way I think to do that is really to write with artists, because if you can get down in a room with Luke Combs, if you can get in a room with Luke Bryan, if you can do that, then you'll be able, the artists themselves can say, I don't like that line. I do like this line. I think this is too complicated. I think this is too easy. You know what I mean? So, they can kind of, because who knows their fans better than the artists themselves? And so if Brent and I are just in there trying to write songs for, Carrie Underwood, we're just guessing at it. You know what I mean? And so if it was Brent and I sitting in a room with Carrie Underwood, we'd be a whole lot quicker to write a Carrie Underwood song, just with that kind of direction. You know what I mean? Because we only write the way we write, But
I agree with that. But on the same side, on the different end of the spectrum, you'll have an artist like Justin Moore, which I don't know if you listen to the podcast, but when I mentioned you and Brent, he said that's that's nice company to be mentioned in. A lot of artists have said that, and it. They're like Adam and Brent, Brent and Adam. But so you're telling me, like, you want to be in the room with the artist so they can pick it up. But then when those same artists hear your new album or Brent Cobb's new album with The World Is Ending or Keep 'Em on Their Toes or Shut Up and Sing, the 3 that he's released so far, or if you go back to Shine or if you go back to Providence Canyon, I would say that there's not an artist in Nashville that could hear those albums song for song, including all of yours, and say, those guys don't have any talent. Those same artists are going to be like, holy shit, these guys are unbelievable. So why wouldn't they pick those songs when they hear those albums? Is it because they don't think they can carry them through like you, or they don't think that they're going to have mass appeal? That's where I'm stuck, is how does a songwriter get a cut and get a hit if everybody that hears your album says, holy shit, they're freaking awesome? Why aren't they being picked up by an artist that can have mass appeal or commercial success if you guys can't, which is bullshit and a whole other discussion that we can get into, which we already have sometimes. But, does that question make sense?
It does make sense. And I just don't know, Chad. I'm the same way you are. I think because, there are songs there are, I think the Tennessee Wheel is a great example. That song is a song that I've had in my catalog for a long time. I think it's a home run, and I think there's a lot of ambiguity to it, to where, like you said, the listener can kind of paint their own picture. I think it completely expresses the South without, like, leaving the politics out of it, leaving the piety out of it. Just sort of it's an entirely a Southern feel. And I don't know that song's even been on hold. A guy named Charlie Argo just cut it, and Charlie did a great job. And I'm sure you'll hear it pretty soon. I think his record comes out in about a month or two. And Charlie's from Alabama. And just, he kind of has an Anderson East voice. And
did you just have him on?
No, not yet. I think
somebody
I did some stuff.
Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Maybe I'm thinking of Arlo. I saw Arlo was just on with Dave Cobb or something,
that's true. That may be the case. Yeah. I don't know. But Charlie's, I'm sure you've probably heard Ben talk about him, because that's kind of a common ground that Ben and I have, was Charlie and, what's his name? Jay Took, the guy that produced the record. But Charlie's really the only guy that's really touched that song. That's really gave it. It's great.
But that song's a smash.
Thank you.
That song is a smash for somebody to, especially with the word Tennessee being in it. And can we hear it?
Yeah,
do you mind?
Absolutely.
Oh, I love this song, Tennessee Will. So clever.
Let me get this mic out of the way. Or this.
I'm gonna put you on mute so you can't hear me breathing heavily into the microphone as I pant over these lyrics.
My man's on an old upright piano. Lady in red on a banjoline. Playing songs like old Susanna. And getting slower with the jam. I'll catch you right on a steamboat, baby. I'll make it home with time to kill. The Mississippi River won't carry me to you, but I know the Tennessee will. Well, I never did believe that Memphis really ever was the end of the line. And so I'm headed back to Alabama, where my heart's been all the time. Well, and I know it should be easy, but it's hard to say goodbye. Oh, but still I'll catch you right on a steamboat, baby. I'll make it home with time to kill. The Mississippi River won't carry me to you. I know the Tennessee way. Ooh, and I know it should be easy, but it's hard to say goodbye. Well, but still I'll catch you right on a steamboat, babe. I'll make it home with time to kill. The Mississippi River won't carry me to you. I know that the Tennessee will carry me home to you, baby.
Good night. Good freaking night. Just the title is a clever way of putting it. Like, it could have been, I mean, it's just like when you hear Tennessee Will, it's almost like, well, are the Volunteers going to win another game? Or is it like this, or is it going to be like this, you know, this mental stability that a Tennessean has because of being from the state of Tennessee and having pride in it? But really, it's just this river, like, that can carry you home. Like, it's strong. Yeah. So I don't know, man. When I hear a song, you're welcome. And when I hear a song like that, I just wish that, I don't know, man. I guess I think that what we're doing is working, Hood, because I can send you message after message about the playlist, and thank you for turning me on to this, and thank you for turning me on to that. And I know you've seen it, right? And now the Gator Boys are have it all over Louisiana and listening to it on all of their stuff, and all of my guys in California are begging for it. When I told them that you were in the studio at Capricorn, which I'm not going to let too much out of the bag unless you want to discuss it, but you know, that week right before you did that, I had Charlie Starr on here, and what a discussion, man! Like, just awesome to have Blackberry Smokes founder and frontman on the show like that. But he's a fan of you, like, right? So it's like all these people are starting to, well, in my world at least, you might have seen it for years, but I'm starting to see it start to catch momentum, right? And start to spread. And that's all you need, is you just need somebody to keep stoking that fire. And I think that with the support, the music can get out there. And I just hope that people understand that when they hear a song like that, they can break it down and be like, man, that's music. Because I'm telling you, it just happened last night. I had a little get together here for Labor Day, and I put on you, and the first song that I played is She Don't Love Me No More. It had you and Cobb on there. And a girl from California, her name's Katie, looks at me, her and her husband are like, who is this? And I tell them, and they're like, why have we never heard of him? And so then I go and I get your libraries and I start playing them, and they're just like, I freaking love this. Yeah. This is so old school with a new young, a younger voice, younger generation voice to it. They loved it. So I think that that's all it takes in today's world. If you're not going to get the button pushers on music radio to do it, we got to keep figuring this out because the songs are there.
I can, and it's interesting because I can see when the Foul Life shows air, and then I can go look at my Shazam numbers and like 300% increases. You know what I mean? So like in the times that specific songs of mine show up on that television show, my percentages increase dramatically. And so, I mean, that's the thing, Chad. I think what you're doing is you're just sort of, you're not even, it's not like you're telling people any of it. You're just kind of playing it and they're finding it for themselves. But it's one of those things where for the longest time, just nobody's ever played it. It's been up to us to go out and pound pavement and play it for other people because, I mean, I can say, and I realize where my gifts come from. I know that they're not self-made. I know that God gives me the gifts that I have, but I can say that, there have been very few occasions where I've gotten in front of an audience and been booed. I mean, I can probably think of one,
I was there.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah. And so, yeah.
It was just once. It wasn't even you though. Right. It was just a weird deal.
Yeah, it was just weird. Yeah, that's right. It was brown liquor, Adam. But
how's that going, by the way? Everything's still the same there?
Everything's great, man. Yeah, I mean, I just it's really one of those things to where after a year, I just don't see the point anymore. I mean, I don't know. And the good news is, like, I can go hang out in a bar, I mean, and I can hang out with buddies that drink and stuff like that. It's just something that, it was really something that I was never really all that in love with anyway. You know what I mean? It was something, I'm not really one of those guys that can kind of sit around and drink. And so if I can't sit around and drink, what happened for me was I wound up drinking on the job. And so, which is kind of par for the course for me, but when you're drinking on the job and you can't do your job anymore, because I don't even drink at home. I mean, I've got beer in here that expires before anybody opens it, so you know what I'm saying? It's really not, it's never been part of my lifestyle except for work. And so now I don't drink on stage. And so I don't drink anymore, so that's going great.
Yeah. I often wonder how difficult sobriety could be. I watched Ozzy Osbourne's documentary last night, and he quote unquote verbatim, sobriety sucks, but he put the F word in there. So I guess that wasn't verbatim, but it just shows his battle with it over the years. And I also, like when you went on that little road trip, you're trying to pick up some gigs in COVID, and you got to be real careful. And Texas had some places open and 6 feet apart and all this, which it's not hard for you though to go into these places and like everybody wants to celebrate with a beer after, or buy you a shot, which a lot of people do that during a show. It's easy for you now just to be like, look, I'm good. That part of my life's past.
Nobody ever hassled me about it, to be honest with you, which I kind of thought was really interesting too, because that sort of made me think like, man, I think people have kind of been looking forward to me sobering up, because the fact that like when I stopped asking for it, I mean, if I didn't ask for shots, nobody offered to bring me any, I mean, that's probably in a year and a half. Yeah. October will be a year and a half. I mean, I can count on one hand the number of times someone's actually bought me a drink, and it was all just out of ignorance. They didn't realize that I wasn't drinking anymore, and so it was kind of just a common courtesy. And, so yeah, it's really, that's not it. It's kind of boring. You know what I mean? Like that was the one thing that really kind of, and I think because I don't think I had a physical dependence. Like I didn't have to deal with any kind of withdrawals or anything like that. But, there's that time between load in and showtime that is really boring. You got to kind of find something to do, because those were usually the times when I would drink the most,
I would say all artists is like, I think besides the Zac Brown band, I mean, I've been around them enough to know that there's a rule that you can't do anything until after the show.
Right.
you know, that's how it was for years. But I would think that lifestyle, man, that's what music was built on, was the party scene. So I mean, congratulations. I'm proud of you. It just seems like it seems like it'd be a lot tougher to stop than what you're alluding to, which, you know, personally, I think it'd be hard for me not to go to even a little pool party like last night and not have a beer or two, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it just goes with the territory. So
yeah, and now granted, I will say this. I mean, it was hard to make up my mind, and I mean, I was really kind of scared. You know, I mean, I remember thinking to myself, "How in God's name am I going to quit?" And then, but that was the thing that was so surprising. You know, the hard part was actually making my mind up to do so, and once I did, it was a lot easier than I thought. Once I decided to, you know what I mean? Like once I said, okay, no more, I'm not doing it anymore. Once that happened, I mean, I just, you know, granted, like I said, you know, it's still internally, but externally, nobody cares. They don't care if I drink or not. I mean, you know, if I want to drink, and I mean, my friends say that to me all the time. They're like, if you want to drink, fine, help yourself. Nobody's going to judge you if you do, and nobody's going to judge you if you don't. That's been the way it is with me and the people that I run with, you know. Which is great. You know, it's been how I've been able to kind of stay this way.
Have you been able to, when you went to lay these songs down, are the new songs on the new album that you just recorded sober written songs, or are they from the past when you were still on the sauce?
One song is called, and you know, it's probably one of the strongest songs we have recorded. It's called The Harder Stuff. Yeah. And I mean, it's about getting sober, you know? And so there's that one, but, I hit on it, but that's about it. You know, I mean, I don't want to beat the tar out of it. You know, I mean, a lot of this stuff is because, you know, Brent did a great job as the producer on this. He went back and listened to my entire catalog. So he sat through over 300 tunes and listened to every one of them. And so he picked some songs that I've written 10 years ago, but then also picked some songs that I wasn't finished with yet. I mean, The Harder Stuff was one that I wasn't done with. And so there's a large time frame that we kind of cover. And I do that in all my records. I mean, like, you know, the last record, that first song on there, Heart of a Queen, I'd written that 10 years before. And then Downturn was probably weeks old when I recorded it. So
both great songs.
Thank you.
When you mention The Harder Stuff, it reminds me of a Chesney tune about the bartender saying, that's not the good stuff. This is the good stuff. And he starts talking about the kids and the wedding ring and the spaghetti, burnt food and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of that same analogy, but The Harder Stuff, I would guess that when I hear it, which I have not, was going to be about the hard stuff is brown liquor and gin and, you know, alcohol, but the harder stuff is leaving that behind. Is that what it was?
That's spot on.
That's not a hypothesis. I guess that would just be a guess.
It's a good guess. I mean, you nailed it. Yeah.
So what was the vibe like? Capricorn Studios. Give me a little history of this joint.
Man. Okay. So that was Phil Walden and I believe his brother Jerry. So that was, now granted, this is the cliff notes of the whole story. So that was in Macon, Georgia. It was basically the studio that they started, and they were responsible for the Allman Brothers and Leonard Skinner and some people like that. You know, and Macon is like Little Richard's from Macon, Otis Redding's from Macon. You know, I mean, Macon, Georgia is kind of a music for real, like a music mecca. And so that studio was there, and man, I mean, there's a lot of great records that came out of there. You know, a lot of the Allman Brothers stuff was recorded there. I don't know what Skinner records were recorded there. I think Walden was just Skinner's manager. I don't know that they ever recorded in Macon, but they did. Wet Willie recorded there, and a bunch of other. I mean, they had Delbert McClinton albums that were on Capricorn Records. You know, because they had the studio, but then they had a record label. Okay, so the building's been there for a long time. And Mercer University, that's in Macon, went in and bought the facility. Okay, and so I saw pictures of it, and the building that the studio was in, the ceiling had caved in and the floor was coming out, but the studio room itself was completely intact. So just that is really kind of cool mojo as it is, you know what I mean? And so they went in and they sort of didn't change a thing, and they just updated a lot of their recording equipment. They got a new API board in there and you know, got some good mics and stuff like that. And then of course rebuilt the building and made a museum out of it. And they've got a little recording, like a stage area where they can do small shows and stuff. And it was just, I mean, it was exactly what you would think, I mean, it was just it was nice to get out of Nashville. It was cool to go record in Macon, and we stayed there for a week, and just, Charlie and Brent and I, we all kind of stayed in the same, we stayed in the same house and just hung out and just spent all day recording, and went home and made a sandwich and went to bed, and that was about it, so it was really great.
Brent said it was exhausting.
It was a lot of work. I mean, it was, they were probably, we did 12-hour days, 14-hour days sometimes. But that's the beauty in it, man. I mean, when I was land surveying, I'd never do it. I wouldn't do an 8-hour day sometimes, but a 14-hour day playing music is not even, I could have gone 10 more minutes. Just, physically my pipes wear out,
What kind of musician is Charlie Starr? Being in the room with him like that, is he as legit as the world, or like what we know him as with Blackberry, just ripping the guitar and his knowledge? And does he have a really high music IQ? He played
as much pedal steel on the record as he played guitar on the record. And I mean, that was the thing that was really surprising. Charlie and I, so we graduated from high school. He graduated a year before I did. And we graduated from high schools that were 15 minutes apart. So we grew up really close to each other. Teams played football together, or played each other in football and stuff. So we got a lot in common, but we didn't really get to know each other until the past couple of years. I think we opened for him in North Carolina, and that was kind of the beginning of it, so we have a lot in common, and stylistically, we both played a lot of the same places coming up, like, that kind of East Alabama, West Georgia kind of stuff, same places Brent came from. And you kind of listen to a lot of the same music. And we got a lot of common ground. Yeah, he's a great guitar player. And there's a big difference between being a studio guitar player and being a live guitar player. I feel like I'm a great live guitar player, but I don't really enjoy playing in the studio. There's a lot of techie kind of stuff that you really, like you kind of need to know what amps you need to use for the studio, and kind of where your mic placements are and stuff like that. And just stuff that's a little over my head, stuff that you don't have to worry about live. And Charlie's great at both of them. I mean, he's great at both of them. It's all in his hands, but there's a lot that goes on outside of his hands that he's really great at. And then Britt Turner and Richard Turner, Richard played bass and Britt played drums, and they were just spectacular, man. They were great.
Did Coy help out at all? Was Coy going to help?
We talked to Coy about trying to come and do some keyboard stuff, and we just didn't need him really, so he was available, and I think had we have needed it, would have been happy to help, because we talked about it, but no, we just
Coy Bowles is a hell of a musician.
Yeah, he's really talented, man. Kind of the same thing. I mean, with those guys, Zach, well, I used to play a place called the Dixie Tavern in Smyrna, Georgia. Well, kind of outside of Atlanta. And that was Zach's room. And well, man, Zach and I have a lot of interesting history. Zach used to have a place in Eatonton, Georgia, that I used to play. That was his dad's. I don't know.
Was that the supper club or the country?
No, it was called Zach's Place.
Zach's Place.
And so I used to play there. I played there every other Wednesday night for about 2 years. And then we played the Dixie Tavern a lot, but then Zach would play there every Tuesday night. And when he got his deal with Live Nation, they just kind of started phasing out. And we kind of took up some of those Tuesdays. And so, about half his crowd dug it, and about half his crowd wondered where Zach was, and so it was pretty cool. But that area, I mean, that's, where those guys are from, that's where I'm from too.
When you would see Zach in those old days, did you know that his career would do? Because his career is not normal. They have a machine, right? Before COVID, you're talking 15 to 18 tour buses, 28 18-wheelers, a stage that's enormous. Like it was. Did you ever see that happen when you were watching him live? Was there signs of it?
No, they were just a bar band. But yeah, I mean, as far as the scale of it, they were a bar band. But as far as like their ability, yeah, you could something was happening, and it was Zach, but it was also a lot of the guys that he had around him. I mean, he just, he's a stellar player, but he also kind of, is good enough to find other stellar players, and sort of they all became a unit. And I think the last time I played at Zach's place, I did a show with him, and I've opened a bunch of shows for him. It's been a long time, but we've done a lot of stuff together. But that last time I went and sat in with him, and it was pretty intimidating, because it was one of those things to where, like, Wyatt Durrett, this was before Chicken Fried. And so Wyatt was managing this bar, and Wyatt said, he said, man, just get up there and play your songs. And so I said, well, don't they want to hear them or see how it goes? Like, don't they need to know what key these songs are in? They said, no, they'll just follow you. And sure enough, man, I mean, I played like some original material, and like, they never got lost. They just, they're that tight, and they know how to watch and listen. And just, I don't know. It's really kind of cosmic, to be honest with you. It's pretty, they're stellar. It's outer space.
They're the best original cover band of all time.
I think you're absolutely right.
Dude, they do covers like amazing, right? Like,
yeah, right. Insane. They take and make them their own.
They do. So this new project, are we allowed to know the name of the album yet?
We don't have a name yet.
Do you know what the cover art's going to be on the vinyl?
I have no idea. I would say probably not a picture. I don't, I grew up in that time when, like, when Molly Hatchet made records and like Kiss records and stuff like that, those things used to give you nightmares. And so, like, I dig album covers that aren't the band. You know what I mean? Like if you saw, like, to see the Molly Hatchet album covers, you would think they were a metal band, and they're like a Southern rock band. And so I sort of like the mystique of, well, like, Welcome to the Big World, that it had my legs on it. And then, like, the Shape of Things, that was just it was basically just supposed to look like the cover of a book, And so I like that kind of stuff. I like not knowing what an artist looks like. And so I kind of like that sort of that mystique. I don't have any other outlet for being mysterious other than that, not showing my face on an album cover.
Speaking of not showing your face, and you mentioned Molly Hatchet looking like a rock band, but they're really a Southern band.
Yeah.
What kind of band was Kiss? Not showing your face. Were they good? Were they good musicians? Was it tacky and like a circus sideshow? Or was Ace Frehley and Peter Criss in the original lineup, were they true badass musicians? Is Gene Simmons a good bassist? Is Paul Stanley a good frontman and a good songwriter? And I'm asking you because I've never taken them real serious as a legit rock band, but I can groove with some of their shit. And I know that their live show has been successful for decades, but what kind of band are they an American rock band, or are they kind of like a kind of a character show or something?
Well, I think they understood the theatrics of it. You know what I mean? But I also read, like, there's a guy named Tommy Womack that wrote a book called The Cheese Chronicles. And, like, I read the first 3 chapters of his book. And that was the first chapter was kind of devoted to Kiss, because they were the band that he said he saw him play, or he like saw him on TV or something and said, I can do that. And so they were this catalyst for this generation of rockers, guys that were probably, if I'm in my 40s, you're probably got about 10, 15 years older than me, because, like, I was pretty young when Kiss was like making, I had my dad's brother had Kiss albums. So I remember that was like 76, 77. Well, no, I was born in 75. So that was like 70, 77, 78. Anyway. So, I think there's that. I think that there was a simplicity to their stuff that really made it appealing. And it was, all you got, man, you plug a Les Paul into a Marshall, and all you got to do is just note chords. The equipment kind of does the work for you after that. I think those guys kind of tapped into that,
Speaking of the decade that you're born in, it brings a question to my frontal lobe, Adam Hood. I'm the same way. I was born in 74. People are going to be like, God, you guys are old. No, I honestly think that we were born in the greatest decade. Now, some could argue the 50s or the 60s, right? And I'm talking music. Mm-hmm. But we were at that right age to know what hair metal was and to know what Quiet Riot was, and AC/DC was becoming real popular with the Black Album at that time in 83, whenever that was. And then you move a little bit further into the decade. And at the same time, you got Zeppelin ripping the 70s, and you got Ozzy. You got Ozzy leaving Black Sabbath, and he's starting his solo career with Diary of a Madman and Blizzard of Oz and Bark at the Moon and Randy Rhoads' days of Crazy Train and all that shit. And I did know all of that before I watched the documentary last night. So I don't want you to be thinking I'm just like, well, Chad's just regurgitating shit. I'm a huge Ozzy fan. But then you move a little bit further into the decade, and then you had Appetite for Destruction, which wasn't a hair band, but you still had all the hair band. You have Cinderella going on and Queensryche, which is a great theatrical band. And then at the same time, you have great harmonies happening with Hall & Oates from the late 70s through the 80s. And then the 90s hit, and you got Nirvana, and you got Pearl Jam, and you got Soundgarden and Chris Cornell and all this grunge and this different kind of rock and roll. And then all of a sudden, at the same time in the late 80s and the early 90s, you got the Hat Pack hitting in country music, and you got Garth and Travis Tritt and Mark Chestnut and Tracy Lawrence and Joe Diffie and all these badasses that are making country music the biggest thing in music now, after the Outlaws were there and the Whalens and the Merles and all that kind of had their role going. And then at the same time, you have hip hop that's Run DMC's with Aerosmith on Walk This Way in like 86, 87. Then hip hop blows up. It's not underground like Grandmaster Flash and the Sugar Hill Gang anymore. You got Too Short and the Two Live Crew, and then that goes into the late 80s, early 90s, and Eminem pops up. Like, is there a better time to be born to experience music and culture than being born in the 70s?
And and here's the irony to that. That was all pre-internet, man. Pre-internet. I mean, you're talking about, you're absolutely right. I mean, every name that you mentioned is legendary. I mean, genuinely legendary. And that was probably that was an era where the commercial quality was there and the creative quality was there. If you were great, you were famous, and there was no middle of the road. The cream always rose to the top. And and I don't know why. I just think it was one of those things to where, like, pre-internet, nowadays you just don't have to dig for it. It's pretty easily accessible. Like in those days, like, if you like Bob Seger, you had to go out and buy a Bob Seger album. You know what I mean? Like, you had to get in your car or get your mom to drive you to the Radio Shack or wherever.
And I'm not interrupting you, Adam Hood. It was the greatest freaking effing thing in the world to walk into Tower Records or Marabelli's or Warehouse Records. I remember standing in line to get Appetite for Destruction when I was 12 or 13. I remember going to see Dee Snider open up for Bruce Dickinson and Iron Maiden in 86. And I was like, this is music. This is awesome. And I had to work for it. I had to go find that stuff. I had to go up and down the cassette aisle and be like, Quiet Riot, Mental Health, Quiet Riot, Come On, Feel the Noise. And, here's our Stryper, the Christian rock band Stryper I was really into. And I'm like, oh, look at the yellow and black. And I would be so excited, man. I would get new albums, and a lot of them are on my wall now, from hip hop to Don Williams to Dee Snider and Twisted Sister and Quiet Riot and Cinderella. I just think that now it's just a touch of a button, and content's, well, evolution's everything, and I get it, but I'm talking about my bias of being able to say, you don't understand. I got to walk into a record store and flip through vinyl. And I also got to see the explosion of hip hop. I got to see the explosion of country music. We witnessed all that. We were there. So when people say, oh, being born in the 70s, you guys are old, I think we're very lucky and fortunate to have those experiences that you and I and Brent, well, Brent's a little bit younger, but my brothers and the experiences that we had in the culture of things. Because in the music business now, unless you get to travel to Sunset Boulevard and understand what the Rainbow Bar and Grill or the Troubadour or the CBGB in New York and some of these places mean, or you get to go to Broadway in Nashville and 16th, 17th Avenue. A lot of people don't get to do it. I know it's a huge tourist destination, but to know the history and to get to go to those places, that's one thing. But to live through it in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then to be here in 2020, almost 21, hopefully almost 21, to get this shit year out of the way. Weird year. I know that everything comes in time. But it just seems so awesome that me and you could sit back and go, I remember my mom and dad listened to Robert Plant and then Don Williams and then Johnny Cash. And then all of a sudden I was listening to Run DMC doing Walk This Way with Steven Tyler and Joe Perry. That's killer shit. Now, is it happening today? It might be, but I just think that some of it's lost that culture piece and those touch points.
I couldn't agree more. And I mean, that's the thing, it's funny, man. Yeah. And I don't know how this generation is finding it. You know what I mean? Because that, you're right. I mean, I don't know that I would be here if I didn't just didn't sneak up on me. I don't know that I would be here if I didn't just happen to hear George Jones. I don't know if I'd be here if I didn't just happen to be I mean, Cinderella's a great example. I mean, like those were not like when I was in 7th grade, like those were the tapes I was taking to my guitar teacher to say, show me how to play Gypsy Road, show me how to play like Long Cold Winter, show me how to play these things. And if it weren't for that kind of stuff, like I wouldn't know how to play guitar, you know? And so like, I don't know. I wonder what this generation's, who they're taking to their guitar teachers. You know what I'm saying? I'm curious, you know. I mean,
Charlie told a story where he was down in his party place and saw a wrecked Jeep or a wrecked Suzuki Samurai or something, and walked up to this little wreckage, and there was some cassettes laying out there, and he names them on the podcast of like, he's like, goes home and puts them in, and he's like, wow, listen to this. And that's kind of what really started his fascination with music, like because he found it in the cover art and the vinyl and the inside notes and all of the liner notes and who wrote the songs and who were they. I used to look at all the acknowledgments all the time. Well, did Axl thank David Geffen? Did Axl thank Don James, you know, the big photographer that was on the road and put out all the badass books, and they were thanking all these guys. I don't really know if people really pay attention to like who helps Luke Bryan out on a tour or who Luke thanks, right? Because they only get a minute when they accept an award to tell you.
And exactly. And the fact, like, you know, you're talking about Randy Rhoads and guys like that. I mean, you know, Ozzy is one of those. I mean, I'm the same way, you know. I mean, I know about as much about Ozzy as the average bear, but you know, I can name the majority of his guitar players. And like, you're right with guys like today's country music guys, like, I mean, who is the Albert Lee? You know, I mean, who is the Steve Wariner? Those guys are there, but like, you know, I feel like the common man doesn't know Daniel Donato. I do, but because I know who he is, because I work in this industry. But like, you know, I feel like that Daniel Donato is the Steve Wariner of this generation. I think he's an amazing country player. You know, I think that, you know, just there's so many guys like that who used to be that were household names, but now. And I think you're right. I think it's strictly due to liner notes. I think it's the fact that it's not accessible. You almost can't Google it because I mean, I'm in the music industry and I don't know how all music works. I can't figure out how to find stuff through all music, you know, and so it's not available to you. And so, I mean, if you don't make it easily accessible, nobody's going to look for it that hard, you know? I mean, so it's a shame. I hate that. I think because I think the guitar player on work is just as important as the guy that's singing it. There's texture there. The guy that's producing it is just as important. You know,
well, everything
bass is huge. You know,
I mean, we used to go to our mom's house and roll our eyes at how many photo albums she would make us look through with our aunt and uncle. And I know you were the same way. And now it's just an iPhone. And shit, I bet you I print out 1% of the pictures that I've taken on an iPhone in the last 10 years. That's sad. That's really sad. And I've taken multiple thousands, like high tens of 20s thousands. My mom has every picture printed out. It's the same thing in art. It's the same thing in music, I should say, because I know people still collect art. I don't know how that industry has changed as far as galleries go and the way people collect art. But in music, I used to have tapestries and black felt posters and life-size posters and door posters and 3D cutouts of Merle Haggard wearing a George Dickel jacket that was at the George Dickel display. When I saw it, I'm like, I'm nowhere near old, and I don't even know who George Dickel is, but I'm getting that Merle Haggard deal, and it stands still. Or like there was a fascination with the touch points. You know what I mean? Like now it's just like Spotify, you make this list, you hear it, but nobody's really like, I don't know if people even decorate their rooms the way that we used to anymore, because they just go on their phone and they see the cover art on that little screen and that's good enough. Where I would go through those poster racks that were the big black frames, and I would pop through it, get my number, go down, find the rolled up poster. Couldn't wait to get it, to cut it open and get it put up on the wall. No frame, just a bunch of thumbtacks, and the son bitch would be ripped in 17 pieces in a week. But at least I had Axl Rose on my wall for a minute. And that whole deal is where that is the time that we grew up. And if we would have been born in 88, it would have been completely different. Completely different. You would have got a few years and through the 90s, but you wouldn't have been in high school until the 2000s. I was in high school in the early 90s, and I was like, holy shit, I get to do all of this. A Garth Brooks box set meant something. Now it's like, what? There's no such thing as a box set really anymore. You don't collect them like I did. I had George Strait's, I had Chris Christopherson's, I had all the rock ones you could do. But now it's like, well, I don't really know if I need that box set because I'll just go get all those songs on my playlist real quick. It's kind of it's different mentality.
It creates there's a lack of fascination about things. You know what I mean? There's just, you're just kind of you're just not as enamored with things as you used to be. And that's the thing, man. When you're not as fascinated with stuff, you really don't study it as closely. If you don't become obsessed with something, I mean, that's, I hate it. It's just the way it is. If it's something that just kind of comes and goes, you don't learn. You just don't learn. You gotta dig in.
Well, the internet destroyed the baseball card collecting deal.
There you go. Same thing.
Baseball cards. Exactly. Dude, I was addicted. I had to have them all. I was going to shows all over the West United States. My dad would be like, oh my God, another one? And I'd be going up like, hey, I need that 86 Donruss Bo Jackson. I need that 88 Fleer Bo Jackson with the shoulder pads on. I need that 82 Topps George Brett. I need that Billy Ripken 88 Fleer when the team wrote the bad word on the knob of his bat. Remember that? The F face card? I still have them all mint condition. Yeah, the F face. They wrote F-U-C-K and then face on the knob. So on the picture day, and then they had the audacity to have the photographer in on it, to where when Billy Ripken's holding the bat, it had to be turned the right way. So the photographer's like, no, you need to move the bat this way a little bit. The sun's hitting off of a weird angle on the pine tar or whatever. And they got it turned over to where you perfectly can read F-U-C-K face on the knob of his bat. So is it going through today you could find that online. Google Billy Ripken F face card.
I will. Yeah.
You can find that. But back then it meant everything to find it at a baseball card show. I don't even know if they have card shows anymore. If they do, they're not like they were back in the day, but everything changes, everything evolves. My simple statement was, I'm proud to say that I was born in the mid-70s because by the time I was 10, I was in the thick of it. You know what else was taking off, Adam Hood? Bones Brigade, Pal and Peralta, Christian Hosoi, Tony Hawk. I was skating. I was ripping it up. BMX was taking off at an all-time high. Motocross, Ricky Johnson and Jeff Ward and Kawasaki against Honda. And that was taking off at that time. We got to experience the baddest ass times in the history of our country, in my opinion. Yeah. I really do, as far as American culture goes.
And nobody had to tell us to go outside. I'm the same way you were, man. I did BMX for a little while and then I got a skateboard and that was it. I mean, I was gone after that, and I mean, you just, and we still had video games and stuff too, but you just did both. You went out and you skated for a little while and then you came home and you played video games, So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's a little lost,
But even
the same thing, like you're saying, Tony Hawks and McGill's and Lance Mountain and those guys.
Listen to you go, Steve Caballero. They were the shit. Yeah,
because you had developed a fascination for that kind of stuff. Do you
remember Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol, when David Spade is playing the punk kid at the beginning and he's skating with McGill, Lance Mountain, Tony Hawk through the parking garage, and Steve Guttenberg and all the cops. We had movies like Police Academy back then, man. Yep. That was the shit. It was a great time to come up in. Because it taught I'm not saying that any other time's bad, right? My daughter's 9. I hope that she understands where I'm coming from if she ever listened to this, of what we got to do in 40 years, 45 years. We have got to see a lot of cool things transcend. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't want that to go away. And when you think about the way that you get your content now, man, I had to go to XL Skates on Plum Lane at Shopper Square and talk to Richard Barr, who owned it, where I skated at his skate park on the half pipes. I had to go there and rent movies of the surfing movies and the longest summer movies and Bones Brigade movies. Now you could just YouTube it all. And there's no fascination with walking into that skateboard and going, I need the new Thrasher magazine. I need that independent truck shirt. I'm going to get this new Rob Roskop and Mark Gonzalez vision board right here. Like, I was so eaten up with skating. But then I would walk into Maribelli's Music and I would be like, holy shit, Ronnie James Dio's on a new poster. I'm getting that Holy Diver poster right there, right? Like, you don't get that anymore in culture. I don't know if kids get that anymore.
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, yeah, we had to go to Columbus.
Why'd you
Georgia,
laugh
so
at my Ronnie? Why'd you laugh at my Ronnie James Dio deal? Do you not like Dio? I love Dio.
Yeah. How can you not?
Like Charlie Starr said, in the South, a lot of Dio shit wasn't allowed to be played, or even the album covers weren't allowed to be looked at.
Well, and that's kind of where you develop the fascination. Anything your parents told you couldn't do was the kind of stuff that you did first. You know what I mean? And that stuff just, it's the epitome of rock and roll, you know? So yeah.
I do you remember what you were about to say? I cut you off, and I apologize, but I was wondering why you laughed at Dio.
Oh no, I just remember like going to the skate shop and stuff. I mean, we didn't have a skate shop in Opelika, Alabama. I had to drive across the state line. There was one in Columbus, Georgia that we could go to, and so if I needed new wheels, I had to go to Columbus to do it. You know, there was no Amazon, there was no internet. You know what I mean? There was just no way to get it. You know,
which is good.
You had to be devoted.
I understand that it's good. I'm just talking about that cultural aspect of, and then watching Tower Records and Marabelli's and all of them go out of business. It's like, it was like that Chris Ledoux song when they tore the last drive-in down. You're like, don't tear the drive-in down. That's where I did this, and that's where I met her in the back of my truck on the lawn chair. You know, like those lyrics like transcend into all different parts of culture, which everything evolves. I'm not ignorant to it. Being born at that time, though, and being able to say that we played Frogger and Pitfall and Renegade and Asteroids and Mike Tyson's Punch Out and Donkey Kong. Now video games, you might as well just be in a 3D movie, right? I mean, it's so real. It's like you're not even playing a video game. Back then, there was a fascination with this little weird frog trying to jump across traffic. You know, that was as good as the graphics got. Even though Mike Tyson's Punch Out looked kind of real, but now even the body movements with all the technology, they actually get boxers and baseball players and golfers and quarterbacks in the studio to mimic what they're doing. And then it's just Tom Brady throwing a ball. Well, I just watched that on the Super Bowl. I had to play Tecmo Bowl when Bo Jackson would run your ass over, but he looked like a 3-inch little gadget you made with Legos, right?
Like little squares. Yeah, he looked like a Lego man.
Squares. Yeah, exactly. And it was awesome. It was freaking awesome. Tecmo Bowl. Remember it. Right? You do, huh? See, I just think that we grew up at the cool time, man, that we got, I mean, just to know that we were there when the Outlaws were still hot, and then before grunge and the hair metal was taken off, and then GNR, to see Axl in his prime. I always go back to them because it's the best of all time in my opinion. But just everything that was going on that we talked about, Adam Hood, of the biking and the motocross and even sports back then, man, the Pine Tar incident in the '85 World Series and pre-steroid days, guys, Lenny Dykstra had chewed the size of a freaking donut in his mouth, and he's spitting all over the AstroTurf at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. And George Brett had a chaw, and like it was just gritty. Pete Rose was gritty, and now it's like, well, if you don't come out and speak against what you believe in, and you know you got to do all this political, like that, it was raw. The '80s and growing up and being born in the '70s and going through the '80s and living through the early '90s, I just think it was raw. And I know things started to change in the mid '90s to where we are now, the last quarter of a century. But I'm telling you, man, that time when you and I were born, Adam Hood, it was awesome. Like, you need to write a song about, like, this is when life was life, man. I just think it really was. That's a cool decade to be born in, bro.
That's a great idea, because there's a lot of it, you know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you could really dig into. I mean, especially sitting here talking about it, you know. I mean, just, you know, I mean, yeah, the A's and the whole steroid thing, and just, I mean, you know, just, man, back, you know, and it was back when, like, I think it was before statistics and before the fantasy sports aspect of it came, and you know what I mean, before you had to, you know, before you really cared what someone's stats were, when they could just be a star, you know.
You know why? You know why? Because we had their baseball cards and their posters. We had their posters. We got stickers of them in David sunflower seeds and jumbo sunflower seeds. We would get that, and we would hang on to that like it was the holy grail, man. It was
they
like,
were larger than life. Yeah,
they were larger than life back then. But now it's so easy. If I want to tweet or text LeBron James or a musician, I think that I can, because everybody's so accessible now. At least you think that they are, by the way that you can just go on and see what everybody's living. Before, dude, you didn't know how many nights Wade Boggs and George Brett were drinking beers together after a game. You didn't know that. Now
you
it's
romanticized about it.
Yeah,
you
romanticized, but now it's like TMZ spoils everything for you.
I know,
don't tell me my heroes do that shit. No, they don't wear sweats to the store when they're buying tomato sauce. They're all, man, they got to be dressed up and looking on the nines all the time, right?
Totally.
I don't know, man. I think there's something in there as far as like the idea of a song goes of that. I don't know, man. I'm just thinking out loud. Like, I just love the fact that I was born there and that I can be 45 and still look so freaking young, Adam, which I know that you'll agree.
I'm going to make some notes about that, by the way.
All right. Make sure you say the words in there, Dio and Bones Brigade.
Get a little writer credit. Yeah, that's fine. make you a co-writer on that.
I will. Well, who was the guy that did the song about the 80s? Was it the Pac-Man in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s? There was actually
Joel had one that We Didn't Start the Fire. Well, he went through a bunch of decades.
But this one was the country one.
Bucky Covington?
No, it was way younger. It was oh, come on, man. It was not Chris Cagle, but in that time a guy.
Tracy Lawrence.
Nope, it wasn't Time Marches On. It was the one about. That you're playing. This song may have already been written, Adam Hood. What is that song called of where you're playing Pac-Man and then the Rubik's Cube was famous? He does the 70s, the 80s, and then the 90s.
It was 1970 something.
That's it. Yep. It was 1980. See, they already wrote it, and we didn't even think about it.
God,
it was 1970.
All the good stuff, man. What
was that song?
It wasn't Mark Wheels. I can't remember the guy's name.
It was in the Mark Wheels age.
Yeah.
1980 something is the name of it, I think. Yep, 1980 something, and it was done by Mark Wheels. Good call.
Whoa, look at me.
Right, look at that right there. There's the video for
right there. Putting nothing past me, I know.
So that song that we're literally sitting here talking about, he kind of did. It was 1970 something, 1980 Dukes of Hazzard, which is not something that you'll never see on TV again. Anyway, what do you think is going? Is there a song on the new album that we can hear today? Is that legal, or do you have to keep them all a 100% secret for now? Because your producer, I mean, that dude can get pissed, and he knows karate. He has nunchucks. Brent Cobb is like a secret technician, you know.
Did he tell you he knows karate? I know for a fact that joker don't know no damn karate. He may own some nunchucks, but hey, owning nunchucks don't make you Bruce Lee. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's not, you know.
There's another part of when we grew up. How many people know who freaking Bruce Lee is?
I know. That's very true.
I watched every Enter the Dragon, all of his movies. Plus, do you remember this name in martial arts? 9 Lives of a Ninja, Sho Kazuki. I watched every VHS tape for years and beta movies.
I don't know.
Beta. What about Stephen King, Maximum Overdrive? Remember that on beta?
AC/DC did the soundtrack.
The whole soundtrack, dude.
Yeah.
Badass. I mean, when the machines would come alive.
And that scary ghost, like the gremlin face on the front of that truck. Oh my gosh.
And then you go into stuff like cinema, right? Like comedy. I'm a little bit different here in like classics, right? Like I think that the 2 funniest movies ever made laugh for laugh are Superbad and Wedding Crashers. And they were made in the 2010 era, 2008, 2010. You go back to the Fletches and the Caddyshack and the Police Academies and the Vacations, like Chevy Chase, that raw comedy of him and Cousin Eddie, like the scene in Christmas Vacation when they're walking in Walmart and Eddie's just putting all the Old Roy dog food in the basket, right? Just fills the whole thing up with like 7 steps into the store. Like, it's just like, the movies were hilarious. I don't think they were as funny as like what Vince Vaughn and these guys do in some of the movies that I just named. But as far as like consistent, awesome content to watch from the cinema, like really, really good comedy. I don't know if there's a better time in history than that time when Saturday Night Live was getting huge, and then all those people.
I was saying Saturday Night Live was probably
the late 70s all the way through the 80s. It was, dude, think about Caddyshack. Think about how ahead of the time that movie was, man, with Rodney Dangerfield and how raw that was. Then you had Porky's. Then you had Revenge of the Nerds, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, I don't know if that kind of movie would ever be made again, where a bunch of nerds are competing with a bunch of jocks for a bunch of hot cheerleaders, doing wonder joints, planting cameras in the sorority house, sending greased up pigs into a fraternity party. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just like that whole era of those classic comedies were amazing.
But there's so many demographics of people in society and stuff that just can't take a joke anymore. I mean, that stuff was funny because it was kind of picking on certain people, and it was like, it was the nerds picking on themselves, but, it like kind of picked on the Greek society and picked on this, and everybody thought it was funny. And like, I don't know, you can't get away with that stuff anymore. It's just, and nobody can take a joke anymore. I can. I think pick on me all you want to. I don't care.
Oh, I would love it, dude. Make a joke about a guy from Reno, Nevada in the desert that thinks he knows how to duck hunt and then tries to make a TV show about himself, right?
Like, that's laugh funny all the way to the bank if you want to. Exactly. Yeah.
That's funny in itself, right? Like, that's hilarious. Nobody would ever try. You got to be from Arkansas to make that movie, right? You got to be a duck hunter. You got to actually be a duck hunter, Belding. Stop faking people out. The
truth is better than fiction. It's a better story than fiction.
Fake it till you make it, dude. Now I'm doing it on Traeger grills, Adam, and cooking like people are like, you don't really know how to cook, and I'm like, how do you know? You'll never know. You'll never know.
Yeah, come eat my food and you'll see. That's right.
Just come try it. Are you thinking that you could play us one today? A new one.
I'll play the harder stuff. Now the lyrics, I'm not. There may be lyrics that may change, so don't hold me to some of the lyrics because we haven't really finished vocals on them. But yeah, I mean, I've played this song out in front of some people recently, so I'll do this. So you can get my situated. This cable is wearing me out today. Okay. What in the world? Hang on. Okay. Years worth of liquor and too much time. It's hard on a man my age. I couldn't see straight to the left or the right and decided to change my ways. So if I walk off stage and say goodbye without hanging around drinking and telling lies, there ain't nothing wrong. It ain't nobody's fault. I just finally realized lately I just been hanging on. I love people, but I ain't that strong. I have my reasons for moving on. These days liquor don't write my song. It ain't right for a family man to build a house on shifting sand. So don't think that I've given up. I'm taking on the hardest stuff. There ain't no telling what the neighbors will think. That's never stopped me before. If I pour it all down the kitchen sink, spill it all over the floor. So it's so long, the day's gone behind closed eyes. It ain't for no other heart but mine. There ain't nothing wrong. It ain't nobody's fault. I just finally realized lately I just been hanging on. I love people, but I ain't that strong. I have my reasons for moving on. These days liquor don't write my song. It ain't right for a family man to build a house on shifting sand. But don't think that I've given up. I'm just taking on the hard stuff. Don't think I've given up. I'm just taking on a hard stuff.
freaking night, bro.
Thanks,
Come
man.
on. How old is this song? This is new, obviously, with this time in your life.
We finished it. Went out when we were in Macon. So it's brand spanking new. My buddy Davis Nix and I started it, and then Charlie and Brent and I finished it.
So there's going to be 4 writers on it.
Mm-hmm.
The line about it ain't right for a man to build a house on shifting sand. Holy shit, is that deep? Mm-hmm. That's deep. Because
Thanks,
your family's back at home, but nothing's stable because the leader of the house is freaking falling down, passed out drunk some nights, and that ain't how you're supposed to build a foundation or a freaking family or a house. Is that what that line's saying?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's biblical, you know. I mean, that's sort of where that line came from. Just, you know, I mean, I don't know. The Bible's a good thing to quote from. You can always paraphrase stuff from the Bible and it's accurate. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean that's pretty much the premise of it. You know.
Good. That's beautiful, bro. That is beautiful.
Thanks, man.
The song almost is a story. Like it's a long time before it even gets into the first hook. There's a lot said before you get to the hook. Am I right? Or is
which is kind of uncommon. You know what I mean? Like that's really one of those songs that like usually you kind of, I mean, if you're not into the hook by the first 30 seconds, you've lost most people. And so, you know, it's really, it's a challenge to kind of do that, to give any kind of lead up, any kind of storyline and make it interesting. So I'm glad to hear you say that. I mean, that's mission accomplished with that.
So that's really, look at, maybe I have some freaking skills in this business, man.
Totally. I need to get tons of skills. I've
been trying to write a song for a long time. I've been trying to write a love song.
There you go. See, look.
That song is badass.
Thanks.
I just want to go over some of these real quick. Give me a second. Okay. Way Too Long speaks for itself.
Thanks.
She Don't Love Me is on a different level of I just love the way that the song flows. It's such a good tune.
Yeah.
Trying to Write a Love Song is such a badass, window down, thinking you're Superman in the front seat of your 72 Ford with an 8-track player, maybe cassette, and just the old days of being in my old 68 Chevy Stepside with a straight 6250 and thinking I was something, man, thinking that there was no kryptonite. Like, I'm really like finding that girl and I'm going to write like that song just does it for me. Hell of a Fight, you did it. Genius. Downturn, genius. Tennessee Will, genius. Buzzes Like Neon, amazing. 22 Days Too Long. Alabama Moon, Heart of a Queen, Flaming Gasoline. I'm naming songs that you should all go out and listen to. Bayou Girl, Don't This Sound Like Love, I'll Sing About Mine. There's a song that we played right here called The Countryist, featuring Sonny. What's Sonny's last name?
Sonny Sweeney, yeah.
Amazing song, almost John Prine-ish song about, you know, he likes his eggs and monkey and all. What was the song I'm called? What am I thinking of? The duet he did.
He likes his sniffing his undies. Yeah, what's the song?
Me and you are not good on
In Spite of Ourselves.
In Spite of Ourselves.
Yeah.
That's got some feel of that. Front Porch Thing. Are you serious? Like, this song is a bad mother effer, man. Like, that song needs to be heard right now. I could keep going, but if you don't have this Locomotive is an amazing freaking written song. Confederate Rose. There's Grandpa's Farm. Drake White cut this. Several people have cut this. How it doesn't become a hit with how clever it is so bad. That song is, I just picture a beautiful girl and her grandpa's farm being not trying to talk you out of leaving. Like, that song is insane. Again, I'm jealous that Brent Cobb got to listen to all 300 of them without any interruption. And that's what people should do. I'm being for real. That's what I'm seeing, my man, why I let you go on this podcast is when and you know me, I'm Mr. like thinking I know how to throw a shindig, right? But I throw a lot of them because I love people. Like you said, that song.
Fun. Yeah.
They're fun. And I can't wait to have you out for one. But did you see Paul McDonald on top of my grotto?
I did, yeah. And I was really jealous. Yeah.
Okay, well, do you want to come out and do one?
I'd love to.
Okay, well,
okay, we'll make some plans.
I'm going to look at the weather report to see if we can fit it in before October.
Okay. Is that when season opens? Does duck season open out there in October?
It's just the weather turns for a pool party. But I did. It's funny. It's funny that I'm on a podcast with you and I get this text from our mutual friend, Ben Ratliff, who, by the way, is in charge of the Foul Life playlist on Apple Music. that you really need to get.
Yeah,
But
it's in good hands with him.
he says, yo, I need to talk to you about hood and hunting this season. And I said, oh, that's funny because we're on a podcast together right now.
I've been blowing these duck calls every day, man. I've really been practicing hard on these things. So it's time to really put some rubber to road with these calls.
Let me hear it.
I don't have them. I don't have them with me because, well, the kids are asleep. I got this chit chat though. Are they still asleep? Are the kids still asleep? I can't blow them hard. That's not loud enough. I can't blow it hard.
Let me see you do it. Let me see that again. Okay, so I'm going to tell you something real quick.
Okay, go.
Okay, can you see me?
Yeah.
My elbow's straight up and my wrist is straight. So I want you to drop your elbow, but I want you to keep your wrist straight. Okay, see how it forms like that duck head or that snake head?
Yeah.
Okay, that is the ultimate back pressure in a duck call. Now, take your hand and I want you to loosen up these three fingers here, your middle, your ring, and your pinky. They're one unit. I want you to slightly just tap those three tips of your finger on the fatty tissue of your palm, but not tight. Now, I want you to just to cup it like that. See how it's got that snake mouth now?
Yeah.
Now you do not move your fingers. I don't want you flapping at all. That's all show off and tempo. You don't need that. I just want you to go. Let me see if I got a duck call in here. I don't think I do. Okay, do not move. See, you moved your fingers.
Man, okay, all right.
You're moving your fingers.
Man,
that tone's good though.
So much, dude.
That tone's good though.
Is it good? Is it really good tone?
Yes, but it's hard.
This is me blowing at 6, like.
Okay, now I see another thing that I want you to do. Okay. I don't even know if you would be able to hear me blowing a duck call, but we're going to end this podcast right now. I'm going to work with Adam Hood for 5 minutes on a duck call because I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I don't know if I'm going to be able to even let you hear my call because of yours is cutting out because of the audio levels a little bit. Yeah. So I don't know if we're going to need to turn them. This has been another episode of This Life Ain't For Everybody podcast. Please get the playlist called The Foul Life on Apple Music. Get all of Adam Hood's. Don't just stream his music. Buy the albums. Get his merch. What's the website, Adam Hood?
AdamHood.com. Pretty simple. Yeah.
Has some of the best merch in the business. Like you said just now, I cut you off because that's the problem with some Zoom sometime and talking with Chad Belding is that I tend to talk over people sometimes, Adam. I'm sorry.
No, it's good, man. You're better at it than I am anyway.
That'll get you to your social media, Instagram, Facebook, all that. But ladies and gentlemen, if you couldn't really hear the pitch and the tone in this man's voice, how he's singing now, and he's actually kind of pussyfooting around some of the songs because now I just found out that his babies are sleeping. His wife's going to hit him with a frying pan if he sings too loud. When you hear this man live and you hear this man on his CDs, his albums, his vinyl, wherever you get your music, I'm telling you, it's pure magic. So do yourself a favor. Go get every song Adam Hood has written and delivered. He is the man. Adam, thank you. Any closing words?
Man, thanks for having me back, dude. It really is. It's always a pleasure. I enjoy. I learn a lot from you, and I enjoy our conversation. So I'm looking forward to doing this in person. That does sound like a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've only had about one hello and then one like what's going on kind of in person before COVID, but now we became fast friends, and I will get you and Ben these dates, but we're going to work on the duck call here for a minute. This has been another episode of This Life Ain't For Everybody podcast, brought to you by our friends out of Lynchburg, Tennessee, the one and only Jack Daniels, which I don't mean to say that because I do respect Mr. Adam Hood's sobriety and I support him. I really do.
Great.
I support it. I would
it's
never.
It's the hand that feeds you, man.
You know what?
That's fine.
Jack Daniels supports your sobriety too. I promise you that. I can't wait to introduce you to some of those guys. I'm going to take you to Barbecue Hill in Lynchburg sometime, and we're going to do a show up there. Me and you and Brent, maybe Leith, get all three of us up there on a turkey hunt this coming spring. Plan on it. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. Fun. Tom, hit that button. Today we are going to go out with an Adam Hood song. I'm going to pick the song. I'm going to do the picking because, Tom, I want you to leave. Jake, I want you to leave this podcast. You know what? We're going to go out with Downturn. Adam Hood, Downturn to take us out. You guys, thank you for supporting the partners and sponsors that support us. Thank you for all the subscriptions, the ratings, and reviews. Please keep telling your friends and family about the podcast, not just this one, but the Foul Life podcast and our newly launched podcast, Where the Payment Ends. Can't wait to hear from you guys on what you think of it. We're fired up for it. Tom, hit that button. This is Adam Hood, Downturn is the song. Thank you all very much.